Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Ford of Diamond Foods in Stockton, California. Welcome to the Walnut panel discussion. Joining me today is panel veteran John Aguilar from Mariani Nut Company, Ben Herreros from Chile, Jinko Zhao from China, and Zerkan Gorgalu of the Turkan Group in Turkey. This morning, we will attempt to forecast future shipments and the 2018-19 crop sizes from origins from around the globe. In addition to the four of us, we surveyed many others from around the globe in order to reach consensus on a forecasted number. One thing is for certain, we're probably wrong. I'm not sure which side are wrong, over or under we are, but I'm fairly certain we are. A great example was last year in California. The industry was surprised. We thought we had a 690 or so short ton crop, and due to heavy orchard flooding in low-lying areas and three incredible heat waves in June, July, and early September, we lost about 10% of that crop and ended at about 628,000 short tons. So Mother Nature is always going to have her say in our crop sizes. Unlike almonds and pecans, which are grown in specific regions of the world, primarily North America, walnuts are different. They're grown around the globe in well over 20 countries. So today, my colleagues on the panel are going to be presenting from their origin of expertise. And if we have time remaining at the end before questions, I'm going to cover some global trends and some innovation thing that is beginning to happen in the walnut industry. As we all know, we have bigger crops coming. We had bigger crops coming 20 years ago. We had bigger crops coming 10 years ago. And we got bigger crops coming today. I think this industry's proven very resilient and has been entrepreneurial in focus to be able to continue to keep up on the demand side as the supply grows. With those comments, let's get busy. Just to review the standard INC statistical chart, our beginning inventory was about 100,000 tons going into the 17-18 crop. The crop size was about 2 million tons for a total supply of about 2.1 million. We are forecasting with remaining shipments through August that we will begin the 2018 season with about 113,000 tons. That's about 13,000 or 13% more than last year, and that's actually a good thing. The California carry-in was probably too small last year, and we simply, because of a late crop, we missed September. We slept through September, and shipments were down 50%. So we need a little higher carry-in to cover that demand, and there is pretty significant demand in that time of the year. Looking at, I'm going to touch on real quick the big four growing areas. China, our forecast is about 750,000 metric tons. That's down about 11% from last year, or about 90,000 tons. We'll cover that a little bit more in detail as to why, but there was a pretty major freeze in the northern part of the country that's going to have an impact. In the U.S., we're forecasting 620,000 metric tons. That's up about 11%, or about 60,000 metric tons. In the Ukraine, we're forecasting 113,000. That's down from last year by about 15,000 tons. Sergey will talk about that a little later. And in Chile, we're expecting about a 20% increase from 125,000 tons to 150,000 tons. That will, and when we look at the rest of the world, that's going to be a crop of about 1,946,500 metric tons. That's about 2% lower than last year, relatively insignificant amount. And with shipments, we're expecting to end next year with about the same carryout as we did this year. With that, I'm going to invite Benjamin to speak a little bit about Chile.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. Gracias y muy buenos días a todos. About Chile. In Chile, the population is almost 18 million people. Of them, 40% live in the capital of Santiago. One of the biggest focus in my country is the export industry, where walnut is one of the most important and biggest product. We have 26% of trade agreement with 64 countries. Santiago is one of the most developed country in South America, and with entities that works and in a good way and a good business capacity. Our GDP is $23,000 per capita. Chile is a very thin country with the 4,300 kilometers of length. Chile is considered as a phytosanitary island because in the south we have the Antarctica. In the north we have one of the driest deserts. On the east, the big mountains, the Andes, and in the west, all the Pacific Ocean. Those are the natural barriers that will make a good product in terms of sanitary. We have a Mediterranean weather with soft temperature during the summer and non-rain during the growing harvesting. We have all year-round availability of walnut, concentrate in the counter season with northern hemisphere. We have our peak season from May till October. In terms of our supply, we have 45,000 hectares, in which 38 of this percentage is concentrated in the metropolitan region, with 17,000 hectares. 36,000 of these hectares, which represent the 76%, are bearing hectares, and 10,000 hectares, which represent 24%, are non-bearing hectares. The walnut surface are in 900 kilometers of length, and where Santiago is in the middle. With this surface, Chile is one of the largest producer in South America, and one of the biggest producer in South America as well. In terms of our surface, we grow from 2010 till 2018 in 20,000 hectares, in where the rates at the beginning were 11% and nowadays 5% yearly. In terms of our varieties, we have mainly Chandler that represents 72% of our total. And we estimate this year in 90,000 tons of Chandler. And Sir represents 22% of our total production. And this year is estimated in 27,000 tons. And finally, other variety that represent 6%, and it's only 8,000 tons. In terms of the production and export number, from 2010 to 2017, the production increased in 30,000 tons. till 160,000 tons. Chile normally exports 95% of the production volume. Our estimated production this year, including carryover, is 125,000 tons. But today it's not completely clear because we finished our crop last week, and this year we have a very small sizes, especially in Chandler. With normal year, we have a 78% over 32. This year we have only 57, 20% less in terms of sizes. That's why we feel that probably we can have less volume than our initial estimation. In terms of our export, in relation to 2017, we export in 2017 45% of our volume to Middle East, followed by Europe with 44% of our volume, and in South America, Central South America represent 8%. Asia is growing year by year, but last year was less, it was 3%. How is divided our industry? Our industry is divided in three products: in-shell product, machine crack product, and hand crack product. Last year represented in in-shell 50%, in machine crack 35% of our volume, and in hand crack 15%. And in our opinion, but it depends on the volume finally, the in-shell product probably could be maintained this percentage or could be a little bit less. With any doubt, in machine crack, we will increase our volume yearly by yearly, and hand crack, probably we will decrease in terms of our offers. Our challenge, of course, as Chile is increasing year by year from 150,000 tons till 200,000 tons in the next 4 years, we must to be more aggressive and more competitive. We need to move our walnut in a short period, from no more than 10 months, but in between 6 to 10 months. Growing and develop our market, especially in machine crack. Be competitive, of course, with other origin. And for this increase, we need to increase in our budget in marketing. We are spending $2 million in marketing in financial by growers, exporter, and Chilean government, all of us. In this program, we will invest in India, in China mainland, and in Europe as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Benjamin. I have a couple questions already for you. One, with additional plantings of walnuts, stone fruit, table grapes, wine grapes in Chile, what is the water situation like?
Excuse me? Excuse me. Hello?
Speak loud.
Okay.
The water situation.
Excuse me again, the question again, sorry.
With the additional plantings of walnuts, table grapes, wine grapes, stone fruit, what is the water situation like in Chile?
Well, in Chile, the water situation is absolutely unstable because we depend, as in California, the snowpack during the winter time. And year by year, the situation is more hard because the weather is changing and sometimes not enough snow in the mountains as we depend on the snow in the mountains. This year, for example, is... sorry. technical problem.
Ben, I'm going to go ahead and pivot to a second question while they're hooking you up. And with Central and South America in your backyard, will there be efforts by the Chilean walnut industry to invest and try to develop those markets where walnut consumption is very low?
Yeah, of course, all our neighbors are very important for us. If you take Brazil and Argentine, they have 250 million people there. We always make all our efforts because they are in our backyard, as you tell. But sometimes the political and economical situation in those countries are not so stable, and it's depend of that finally. But of course, we made all our efforts in sell to our walnut mainly in this area.
Okay, good. Thank you. Please feel free to send more questions for Chile when we're done with our presentations. Sir Can, would you walk us through Eastern Europe?
Thanks, Gary. Hello, everybody. I would like to mention a little bit about Eastern European walnuts, current situation and for the next years. Let's start off with Ukrainian crop expectations, which is the biggest producer of the Eastern Europe. This year we had 132,000 tons expectation to be finalized, and for next year we expect around 113,000 tons of walnuts to be having. And the second biggest producer is the Moldova, which was around 39,000 tons this year, and we expect 36,000 tons for the next year. And Romania, we expect normal year again, like 31,000 tons. And others, which is the biggest part, is Bulgaria. We have 13,000 tons of walnuts as an expectation for a normal year. Eastern European walnuts are mainly consumed in Europe as in baking industry, and also organic walnuts industry for Europe and United States. The majority of the products are being non-cultivated and low meat yields, around 32 to 38%. And non-cultivated planting areas have much more meat yields with professional farming practices, around 45%, 50%. And of course, the varieties are mainly like Chandler. And exports are, for the previous years, again, Ukraine had the 17,000 tons of kernels, and Moldova was the second with 15,000 tons, and Romania was around 5,000 tons of kernel base. Let's start off with Romania, which is the largest producer in EU after France. EU funding for new plantation has been boosted and taking more interest, and the crop is consumed mostly in EU markets and also some Turkey. And Romania also imports Californian products for the retail channels, actually, indirectly via, other European ports, and also to direct shipments to Romania. And number of trees, as you can see, they are not increasing in general, around 1.8 million. Of course, there are non-bearing trees and replaced by new plantations, and the numbers are always similar. We expect to be seeing more plantations for Romania as well, because of EU subsidies is still there. Let's continue with Ukraine. It is the biggest country for Eastern European walnuts as a producer. Ukraine we had actually, in this slide it's not mentioned, but we expect less crop than previous year. Last year was really a bumper crop, and there are still products availability in Ukraine. And we expect a little bit less in next year, around 13,000 tons, 113,000 tons. Main export markets are Iran, European Union, of course, and Iraq and Turkey. And Iranian shipments are also, being used by Turkey as well in different channels, let's say. Europe is, of course, one of the biggest markets for Ukrainian products. For in-shell sales, also we have Turkey there, around 3,000 tons in 2016 and 17. We expect to have around 6,000 tons for this year to be end up. And for Iraq, would be around 2,000 tons for next year. And for European Union, we have just few tonnages as in-shell base. Let's continue with Moldova, which is the second biggest walnut producer in the region, which has around 35,000 metric tons average production. They have around 10,000 tons of kernel-based annual export. The major markets is European Union, USA, and Turkey, including organic shipments. We have also some exports, let's say re-exports, of French walnuts after hand-cracking processes in Moldova. And the remaining countries, producer countries, are mainly Bulgaria, Poland, and Hungary. Poland and Hungary has a total crop of 46,000 tons. Poland would be around 2,000 tons in these numbers. These two walnut grower countries are exporting both in-shell and kernels. Hungary is mainly exporting in-shell walnuts with the new cultivations, actually. And Poland is also in-shell and kernel shipments, which is around 2,000 tons of kernels and 1,500 tons of in-shells, mainly to EU. Bulgaria is here as the actually fourth largest Eastern European producer, which is around 10,000 tons to 8,000 tons sometimes, and next year will be a normal year as well. Of course, it's very early to estimate the exact numbers, but this is everything seems okay still now. Of course, total planting are expanding in these regions, stimulated by EU subsidies, and we expect more and more plantations. While the non-cultivated ones are decreasing, we will have more new plantations with higher meat yields. Of course, export market of Poland, Hungary, and Bulgaria would be again EU, Turkey, Albania, and Iraq. Thank you.
Thanks, Erkan. Couple of quick questions. One, what percent of the walnuts currently grown in Eastern Europe are cultivated and irrigated?
Cultivated ones are still limited. I would say would be 10% still, but we expect more increase for the new cultivations. Non-cultivated ones would be decreasing, I believe, in future. Now it's around 90%, but we will have around maybe 80% in incoming 2-3 years, and more percentages of new plantations.
So 90% currently
non-cultivated,
cultivated,
yeah.
moving closer to 80 in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. Are producers and handlers in Eastern Europe, are they investing in cold storage yet, or is that still pretty rare?
There are some suppliers have cold storages, but it's really limited. In general, these walnuts in Eastern Europe are consumed yearly, and almost no carryovers, let's say. I would say almost no, like maybe 5 to 10% cold storage options for the suppliers.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jinku, would you take us through China?
morning, everybody. So on behalf of Chinese Trainer Association, I give you a very short presentation on the part of China. So this chart shows the Chinese walnut production over the past 14 years. So from this chart, you can see the production has been increased sharply over the last few years. So the normal crop in China is about 1 million. This is normal crop, average crop, 1 million. Over the last 3 years, we still have suffered some frost in certain origins. This map shows the Chinese walnut distribution in the origins. From this, you can see the biggest origin so far is Xinjiang, this origin. This already accounts about 40% of total production in China nowadays. And the second largest, Yunnan, it accounts about 30% of total production. So other origins like the Shanxi, Henan, even the Tibet, Sichuan, everywhere in China. But those origins takes about 30% of the total production right now. Oh, still, some other origins, coastal cities like Shandong, Anhui, even the Hubei, Hunan, there are so many plantations in those origins nowadays. Oh no, I'm sorry. So you can see the production compared with other countries' regions. Production in China is quite different from other countries. So all cultivation is scattered as much as 25 provinces regions. Over 50% trees are grown on the hills and mountains. And the crop increased by 5 to 10%. But in the big origins like Xinjiang, even the Yunnan, maybe 10 to 15% increase every year. So nearly 95% consumed domestically, leaving only 5%, 3 to 5% for export. So the cultivation area is about 300,000 hectares. This includes berry and non-berry. So the principal origins, Xinjiang, Yunnan, Shanxi, Hebei, and Gansu. The biggest province in China is, as I said just now, is Xinjiang. And this origin with territory 1.66 million square kilometers, nearly 1/3 for walnut growing. So the vast land and plenty of sunshine, a large temperature difference between day and night. A successful walnut project has enabled this region to produce the top quality walnuts in terms of taste and color and yield, which has ranked the #1 walnut origin nowadays. So in China, we call this origin as Chinese California. This year, we are not very happy with the current crop. You'll probably have some information from industry. We have very heavy frost and snow in the northern part of China in April. So the heavy impact of walnut, not only for walnut, all kind of trees, nuts, like walnuts, apricots, pears, apples, and the stricken area spread over as 5 provinces like Shanxi, Henan, Hebei, even the Liaoning, Jilin, so many areas affected. This is due to abnormal weather this season. We had a very hot weather in the late March, which caused the blossom 7 or 10 days ahead. So suddenly, the cold front dropped temperature below zero, just a few hours in the midnight, so heavily damaged the blossom and the bud. So far, these origins about our industry gave just rough information about 30%, just about 20 to 50% loss. This depends on origin because due to the geographic difference, it's very hard to get exact information from one area to another. So in these origins, it accounts about 30% of total production in China. So most probably we could give you more information during maybe in 1 or 2 months. We hope we could get some updates, more updates during the Chinese International Tree Nut Conference to be held in the 1st of August. So the next, I'll give some information of Chinese walnut export. To be honest, we are not big supplier nowadays, but we think there's a good prospect for us to be back to the market. Historically, China used to be a very strong walnut supplier in the world. We have brilliant history for nearly half century, from 1950s to 1990s. So as early as the 1970s, a yearly export volume for the in-shell was around 15,000 metric tons and 10,000 metric tons for the shell. So unfortunately, China has nearly withdrawn from the market over the last decades due to amazing consumption increase. So they enlarged the production for newly improved variety since 1980s has enabled Chinese suppliers to reappear at the market at competitive pricing nowadays. This has led to a substantial increase for the export since last season. So the statistic shows that overseas shipment for both in-shell and shell in the year of 2017 jumped by 25 and 3 times respectively above the year before. This is only one chart showing the crop season from September until end of March. So the main markets of Chinese shelled walnuts are Japan, UK, Kyrgyzstan, Spain, and Germany. So the future. I think I'd like to take the opportunity to say a few Chinese new varieties. Sorry, I have no pictures right now, but I will try to give the review of these new varieties. To be honest, we have developed a lot of new varieties since the 1980s, but some of them not in commercial production. What I talk about the new varieties in commercial production are very popular both in China and international market. I think the number one is Xin'er. We call it Xin'er, but in China normally we call Chinese Chandler because in terms of the color and taste, very similar to California Chandler. We call the Chinese Chandler. Of course, we admit there are slight differences in taste, but hopefully we should try to give you more information. The character of this variety, normally this is we have harvest time is early September. With jumbo large size, with very thin and smooth shell, light, extra light color, nearly 80%, over 80 to 70%, depend on the origin, depend on the orchard. So the crack out about 55, the yield 55%. This is the most popular variety so far in China, both local and overseas markets. The next one we called 185. This is very similar to California Tulare. The harvest early September. And jumbo size, light kernels, thin in shell. They have very high yield, about 60 to 66. The highest yield is 66, very thin shell. Color also is light. So in China, we call the Chinese claret. And the third variety, this is also Xinjiang. What I talk about is all this is from Xinjiang. Also, the third variety is Xinfeng. We call the Xinfeng variety. This is the earliest variety so far in China. The early harvest, we start to harvest nearly the second half August. The round shape and over and round shape mixed and cracked out of over 50. This is also very cheaper early variety. The next one is commercial production in Yunnan. Maybe some people know quite well about the Yunnan quality. This variety is harvest time is second half August. It can also called early variety. This is with a very thin and rough shell and crack out about 55. So yielding 90% light and extra light. This is a very popular variety in Mediterranean countries for years. So besides these commercial production, new varieties, in each origins and regions, we have developed a lot of new varieties in Shanxi, like Liping, Jinlong, in Hebei, Liaohe, Xiangling. So they're featured by early, late harvest, quick bearing, high yield, the color, dry, and pest resistance. Different, but those varieties are not in commercial production. Oh, sorry. I can't see this very clearly. Sorry. So the last I'd like to mention some future. The future and challenge. I think there should be sharp increase in production for premium varieties in China. So especially in Xinjiang. So I think everybody showed great concern about the coming crop from China. What kind of impact for the new crop? What is really new crop in China? Now we give the rough information about 750,000 metric tons. But this to be verified during the season. We have to carry out a crop survey during the rest of the season. We will try to give the exact information later days. Also, we have our industry also face some impact on the dried nut fruits because of the tariff. The trade issue between China and America also affect the imports for the in-shell walnuts. We don't know how much quantity to be reduced in future. This is really unknown, but a lot of unsettled matter before us. We have to analyze and discuss with our industry to see what we can do. But to be honest, 15% increase in the tariff is really a big problem for the Chinese buyers. That means you have to pay extra 15%. You have to give chance to other origins. Nobody wants to buy with such high prices unless you have the re-export business. I think for some World International Trade Group, they are in a good priority to do this business with China. They have farmland in California, they have office, they have factory in China, and they have overseas markets, overseas customers. They can do this business because in China, they can enjoy the priority for tax reimbursement if they export. I think this leaves a lot of questions for us to discuss in future. But for the volume export, I'm afraid yes, it should be decreased. I don't know how much could be decreased, because everybody probably know we have the shipment to be shipped from Hong Kong to Thailand, Vietnam, and to the mainland. A lot of sources. In case this problem, during the current situation, China have anti-smuggling campaign. So I think it's difficult to increase the volume for those channels unless you ship to mainland China. So it's very hard to say what kind of situation you have to face. This is we need to discuss, we need to see. Another question I'd like to discuss with my colleagues in the industry. We know the market, there are huge plantations worldwide. So besides China, California, America, we have a lot of emerging countries who have long-term projects to develop the cultivation of walnuts. In Southern Hemisphere, we have Chile, Argentina, Australia. They also have a huge project. In the North Hemisphere, we also have the Eastern countries, Mid-Asian countries, huge plantation every year. I think within the next 10 to 20 years, it's quite possible the production in China, not in China, also in the world, could double. Whether the market could accept such a huge quantity or not, maybe we need to discuss within our industry. But to my point of view, I think market could not be full. So what I talk about is based on, I think the consumption and production will continue to grow simultaneously. We have to consider, maybe the time too long, I'm sorry, I'll try to finish. We have to consider Indian market. We have to make comparison between the Chinese market and the Indian market. We have huge population, both China and India have huge population. In China, we have very huge population. We have large production. We have walnut sufficiency. We can meet a local demand. But India, the production in China is nearly the same. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I delay you too long.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
you. John?
Thanks, Gary. So let's move into California. So 2017 was a year of great surprises, unfortunately. We entered with great expectations of a larger size crop, and Mother Nature threw us a bit of a curveball. Depending on how you analyze it one way or the other, our final production came in short, somewhere between 3% and 8%. Even higher, depending on it previous during this year, at the INC last year, we were calculating a crop of up to 700,000 short tons. So with the heavy winter rains and the spring flooding that we found this summer, as long as with the extreme heat that we had over 50 days of over 37 degrees in California, which is very abnormal, plus another 15 days above 40 degrees. So that really took the edge off the crop that we were looking at. So we estimate somewhere between 40 and 60,000 metric tons may have been lost. On average, the 2017 crop was about a week behind the normal. But as we went into the harvest time period, the early varieties were disappointing in terms of quality and in volume. But as we got further into the crop, be it the Tulare and Howards and Chandlers, those became a little bit better in terms of quality and also volume. As we look forward on the shipments so far through April 30th, we're down about 13%. And I think there's one thing to kind of keep in note here. While we historically always look to the year prior to for a point of relevance, a point of reference, I think in this situation, given that the dramatic supply drop that we had, it's probably better for analysis that we do look at the 2015 crop and try and measure that barometer. So while historically, I know we always try to look at the 2016 crop or the crop preceding, I think it's good for analysis purposes that we do look at 2015 from a supply and demand situation and a performance basis. So as we look forward, we anticipate May through September being a little bit stronger shipments than we had in very weak during 2017. So we're expecting very positive movements going forward. In terms of the bloom period, well, we've experienced definitely less rainfall and some windy conditions than we did in 2017. It was a cooler spring time frame that we saw in California, and so that potentially could have delayed the crop, similar to what you kind of heard in almonds as well. So you may have a little extension there in terms of when the crop may be due. We also know that the increased production is expected to continue in California. This acreage base, and you'll have a graph on that to see how that movement is going forward. And we're also expecting a rebound of those early varieties that we saw such a decrease on this previous year. Chandler variety continues to become our #1 variety, over 50% of the crop in California. And then also market leaders, the California walnut industry is very focused and determined to continue to market and fund and invest heavily in any demand-generating activities domestically and globally. So the California market is poised and well ready for things to come. As we make mention about the bearing and non-bearing acreage, we've obviously grown proportionally all the way through the years, and we're now up to about 335,000 acres of bearing acres, about a 6% increase. I believe there's an estimate that comes out this week, if I'm not mistaken, from NAS, that'll revise some of these numbers. But again, the balance of these crops and the balance of these varieties continue to grow in California. Now this graph is kind of in two forms here. We look as an annual basis of 2011-12 all the way to 2016 of what California shipped domestically. The last two columns are year to date, so just kind of make a note on that. So the first 6 columns talk about how we've done in a domestic consumption shipment period. And you can see the spike up in 2015 and 2016, basically due to a lot of marketing activities within California by the marketing board, and we're anticipating that trend to continue to grow as that investment keeps funding into that market. On a year-to-date basis, as I made mention, you've got similar patterns in 2017 year-to-date versus 2016. Obviously a little bit off, simply just because of the supply. Now, where do we look on international shipments? Obviously, we've seen some adjustments because of the supply and the price situation in our international markets. The two biggest ones, obviously, are Turkey and China. But I'd like to draw your attention to some of what we consider a mature market, whatever that means nowadays, specifically Japan. Japan, Germany, Spain. While we see some changes in those, it is really amazing when you look at these markets and what they have done since 2012, 2013. Japan, I wish we had more time to even talk about what they've been able to do with all the headwinds they've had to deal with, but that is not a one-time off. Japan has been on a tremendous growth pattern since 2012, and again, with a lot of challenges as a pure consumption market. So very impressed with just a market like that. So that gives us, I think, very good, if you will, cautious optimism as to the mature markets and what type of elasticity we could see in those markets going forward. As we look at the global shipments out of California, again, we see that upward trend coming from 2012 going forward into 2015 and 16. Year-to-date basis is obviously off, but as I made mention, in 2015, we're kind of anticipating a similar level of final global shipments out of California. And then finally, as we look into the California walnut production and carry-in, as I made mention earlier, again, the 2017 and the 2015 situation are very, very similar. And California continues to produce, production is on the upswing, and yearly carryover seems to be quite in balance relative to the total supply. And then Gary, maybe you want to talk about the global if you want to, real quickly.
Since 2011, world walnut consumption has increased 28%, per capita consumption 25%, and that's 0.1 kilograms per year. For our U.S. friends here, that's about 3.5 ounces. Not a lot. So as we think about larger crops coming, there's still a major opportunity to increase consumption. In the interest of time, I'm going to go toward questions, but our deck will be posted on the INC website. We've got some interesting charts and a deck regarding innovation that's happening in California. the California Walnut Marketing Board and the Commission's going to spend $35 million in demand-generating activities for walnuts. A lot of that's going to be spent in the U.S., which is, you need to win at home. So, but other large markets will have funding as well. So, a lot of innovation occurring now, much more than in the past in the U.S. Shout out to Mariani for the first ones to launch walnut milk, and I agree with the comment yesterday regarding almond milk, that halo effect and that billboard in the refrigerated section is probably help sell almonds. I think that'll be the same case with walnut milk. San Filippo's done a nice job with changing packaging a few years ago to stand-up packaging. That's resonated with consumers, particularly our research says female consumers like that to stand up in the pantry or the refrigerator, so I'm sure others will be following as well. At Diamond, we're going to be launching 10 new items this year, not all in center store baking. For first time ever, the last research indicates that walnuts around the world is now more snacking than baking. That's a change, probably comes as a surprise to many of you, but it is, about 55% of walnuts are consumed as a snack. I think that's encouraging news for the industry because snacking occasions are certainly increasing versus three meals a day. So I think that's an opportunity for the industry across the globe to grow consumption and make sure we're supply demand is in balance as our large crops come. I do have a question about the California forecast. I had 620,000 metric tons. Someone is asking, the U.S. number estimate for the current crop was about 650. I'm not sure where that estimate would have come from. There is no official estimate out. Our estimate, I guess you could say maybe is the kind of unofficial estimate, but we surveyed people around the state of California and kind of reached consensus on about 620,000 tons. Again, that's about 694,000 short tons. So we're today pretty comfortable with that number. Some varieties look really terrific. Chandler's still too early to tell, not sure. There are pockets where they look good, pockets not so good, but I think that's kind of a number today. Again, as I said earlier, we're probably wrong. I'm just not sure which way, but 650,000 metric tons would be 728 short tons, and I don't think anybody that I've talked to kind of sees that happening this year. How does the water situation in California affect the walnut trees and the current crop production in the coming seasons? John, you want to take a shot at water?
Got me? Okay.
You got it?
Yeah,
All right.
You just got saved. I mean, water obviously will always be an issue in California, regardless of the weather conditions at that moment in time. Walnuts, fortunately, tend to be planted in locations where there is better soil and more access to water because it's just the nature of the beast. So it's going to be a challenge, but I think because again, the animal itself, it should be somewhat insulated and less exposed to other items, down in the Bakersfield southern area than itself. So,
yeah, I think just to add on to that, the heavy rain and snowpack from last year sort of kicked the can down the road a while. This year's a little below average in rainfall and snowpack, but still not bad. So that can has been kicked down the road, but there's been no real infrastructure projects that have started. There have been funding approved for additional storage units, but again, in California, things move pretty slow as regarding those type projects. Question regarding Chilean walnuts. Which is more profitable for Chilean growers, walnuts or hazelnuts?
Walnut or hazelnut?
Yeah.
Walnut, of course.
Okay. Well, that's why they're planting more walnuts, right? So, okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you very much. And again, a big shout out to these guys who really worked very hard putting this deck together. Thank you.